My boss tried to ruin my career, so I slowly turned his entire team against him. And now he delivers Uber Eats to our office. That sounds like a punchline, I know, but it didn't start funny. It started with me sitting in a stuffy conference room under fluorescent lights, watching a man in a too-tight blazer explain to 30 people why I was the reason our quarter underperformed. My name is Evan Marks. I'm 39, marketing strategist, divorced, mildly lactose intolerant, and, according to my former boss, resistant to innovation. According to reality, I was the guy who'd been quietly holding that department together for over a decade. I'd been at Blackridge and Cole, mid-size marketing agency in St. Louis, for 15 years. Long enough to see 3 CEOs, 5 branding overhauls, and one very ill-advised office dog program we don't talk about. I started as a junior coordinator writing email subject lines like, "Don't miss this deal," and "Important update about your account," for clients that sold industrial cleaning products and cheese. Somewhere around year 10, I realized I'd accidentally become the person who knew every system, every client, every unofficial rule. I trained the new hires, helped the interns not cry on their first client call, smoothed over things when the creative director forgot deadlines existed. I wasn't a star, I was gravity. And then Greg Landon arrived. Greg was the kind of guy LinkedIn was invented for. Tall, good hair, teeth too white to be natural. Perfectly groomed 5 o'clock shadow. He wore sneakers that cost more than my rent and jackets that looked like they came with a complimentary midlife crisis. He introduced himself on his first day as the new director of strategic marketing initiatives. He shook my hand and said, "Evan, right? I've heard so much about you, man. You're like the institutional memory of this place." He meant it as a compliment. It sounded like a diagnosis. People like Greg don't actually work. They orbit, they curate, they hover in the center of every conversation saying words like synergy and disruptive and lean into, while other people actually create things. At first I thought he was just noise, a storm that would pass. I was wrong. Greg wanted power, real power. Title, corner office, stock options, golf with the CEO power. And I apparently was in his way. It didn't happen overnight. The first month was him being charming. Free donuts on Fridays. "Hey team, feeling good about Q3, yeah?" Loud laughs in the hallway, sending all staff emails with gifs. Then little things started changing. He streamlined our weekly reports. That meant my detailed breakdowns became his since he slapped a cover slide with his name on them. He started using my phrases in meetings. I'd say something like, "We should stop optimizing for clicks and optimize for purchase intent." And 2 minutes later, he'd repeat it louder. What Evan is trying to say is, we have to pivot from clicks to purchase intent. That's the future. The VP nodded at Greg. I stared at the table. Then meeting invites began mysteriously, skipping me. I'd hear about alignment sessions after they happened. Someone would say, "Did you agree with what Greg said about the Monroe account?" And I'd say, "What did Greg say about the Monroe account?" And they'd get that look like they'd farted at a funeral. The thing about being quiet and competent in corporate America is people assume you're fine, that you're above the politics, that you're not that type. Meanwhile, a guy like Greg sees you as an unoccupied parking space with your name on it. The all hands where he publicly blamed me was the day I realized it wasn't just friction. It was an execution. He clicked to a slide titled Q2 Bottlenecks. A graph, a couple of bullet points. At the bottom, in small text, Legacy Strategy Misalignment, Lead E. Marks. "Some of us," Greg said with a sympathetic smile, "are having trouble adapting to new ways of thinking, but that's okay. We're all learning." Everyone looked anywhere but at me. I sat there, heartbeat banging in my ears, and smiled like my face was made of plastic. I went home that night, sat at my kitchen table in the dark, and stared at my hands. I thought about quitting, about updating my resume and pretending my 15 years there had been some kind of mutually respectful partnership instead of a slow-burning loyalty test. And then I thought about everyone Greg had steamrolled in just a few months. The intern he'd made cry. The copywriter he'd humiliated in front of a client. The analyst he'd called the Excel goblin behind his back. I thought about his smirk when he said legacy, and I realized something. People like Greg only exist because everyone else lets them. They feed on silence, fear, and the assumption that this is just how it is. So I decided I was done being silent. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to throw a stapler. I wasn't going to send some rage email that HR would print out and staple to my termination paperwork. No, I was going to take him apart slowly, carefully, scientifically, one perception at a time. The first step was simple. Stop seeing myself as the victim and start seeing him as a system I needed to hack. You can't fight what you don't fully understand. So I started watching. Greg wasn't just an asshole, he was a pattern. He needed three things: an audience control of the narrative, people too tired or scared to question him. So I went after all three. I started with the people no one pays attention to, which in corporate hierarchy means everyone under you and everyone who doesn't sit in a glass office. The receptionist, Maya, the junior designers, the analytics team, the project coordinators, the guy from IT who magically fixed everything and got invited to nothing. I didn't gossip. I just opened doors. Hey, how's it going working with Greg? Long day, huh? That meeting was rough. And like shaking a soda can someone had already dropped 6 times, it didn't take much for things to start fizzing. Maya rolled her eyes and said, "He snapped his fingers at me today. Who does that? I'm not a dog." A junior designer told me, "He changed my entire layout at 11 p.m. and then told the client it was his vision." The analytics guy, Josh, muttered, "He told me real talent doesn't need data." I do data. Kayla, his assistant, laughed once, short, bitter, when I asked, "He keeping you busy?" "He sent me 3 emails in 1 hour asking where his own calendar invite was," she said. "It was in his inbox. I checked. Twice." I didn't say, "He's the worst." I didn't say, "Let's get him." I just said things like, "That sounds frustrating. You don't deserve to be treated like that." "Yeah, I've noticed some stuff too." And slowly their private irritation gained shape. The illusion of Greg as the capable, charismatic leader started to wobble like a cheap table. Then I began feeding his ego exactly what it craved: chances to embarrass himself. The key was never to look like I was pushing. I'd say things in meetings like, "Greg, you've been talking about integrating predictive behavioral analytics into our funnel. Do you want to walk us through the model you had in mind?" Silence. The room would go still in that special way it does when everyone senses someone is about to lie. Greg would clear his throat. Well, high level for now. We're still exploring options." I'd nod. "Sure, just curious whether you were leaning Bayesian or non-parametric. There are trade-offs with sample size." He'd blink. "Let's have analytics put together a proposal," he'd say. After one of those meetings, 2 people approached my desk. "Dude," Josh whispered, "that was art. You just hit him with actual data science. I thought he was going to pass out." I shrugged. "Just trying to understand the strategy," I said. "Strategy," the designer repeated, grinning. "Sure." Another day, he cut off a junior copywriter, Sarah. Another day, he cut off a junior copywriter, Sarah, during her sentence, literally mid-word, to explain her own idea back to her, only louder and stupider. She went quiet. Her cheeks went red. She stared at her laptop like she wanted to crawl into it and live there forever. Later, in the hallway, she whispered, "I hate him. I actually hate him." I shook my head sympathetically. Don't give him that much power. A harmless sentence unless you hear the subtext, but someone will take that power away. She looked at me in a way that made me realize Greg wasn't the only one gathering followers. No, I was too. Not actively, not manipulatively, just by being the anti-Greg. someone who listened, someone who wasn't a walking TED talk about nothing, someone who didn't treat people like background furniture. The next piece of the plan came from observing Greg's deepest flaw. Greg believed everyone else was dumber than him, which made it hilariously easy to corner him. One morning during a routine Monday meeting, he said, "Let's move to a dynamic omni-channel resonance approach." Resonance. That's not a real framework. That's a word he heard in a documentary while half asleep. Half the team stared blankly. The other half wrote it down because corporate trauma conditioned them to. I raised my hand slowly. "Greg, can you clarify something?" He perked up instantly. He loved clarifying. Clarifying to him meant lecturing, and lecturing meant attention. "Sure, Evan. What's up?" "How are we measuring resonance in this context? Sentiment analysis? Repeat engagement? Or are we basing it on real purchasing behavior?" He hesitated. Confusion flickered in his eyes. "It's, holistic, you know, holistic metrics." "Holistic in what dimension?" I asked gently. Designers started coughing to hide laughs. Josh, the analytics guy, literally slid lower in his chair, shaking. Greg looked around, suddenly aware that everyone was watching him, waiting. "We'll have a working session on this later," he muttered. Later never came, and suddenly people weren't scared of him anymore. They were annoyed by him. They were amused by him. They were united in a way they'd never been united before. Against him. Then Greg made his first mistake. He tried to sabotage me publicly. Oh, Greg. Sweet summer child. It happened during a client pitch. A big client. Multi-million. The kind that makes the whole department sit up straight and pretend they enjoy their jobs. We walked into the conference room, laptops open, clickers ready. Greg pulled up the deck, his deck, which was 80% my research and 20% stock photos of diverse people smiling at salad. 10 minutes in, he clicked to a slide that should have had updated metrics for projected customer growth. Should have. The data was wrong, not oops, a typo wrong. No. This was the numbers literally contradict the previous page. Wrong. The client frowned. "Greg, these numbers don't align." Greg froze. He glanced at me, instinctively, because in his mind, I was still the human safety net he could fall onto. I stared back, completely serene. He floundered. "Well, the input files were in transition. We sent the final dataset on Friday," I said calmly. Everyone turned. The client, the team, even Greg. I spoke softly. "Greg, did you replace the forecast model?" Yes, I adjusted the structure." "So you overwrote live formulas with manual estimates?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The senior client said, "We don't work with agencies that fudge projections." Greg stammered something incoherent about strategic storytelling, and the client actually laughed. Not with him. At him. It was over. Not officially yet. But everyone in that room knew the throne Greg had carved for himself had just snapped under his own weight. After the meeting, the dam burst. People whispered openly. "Did you see Greg's face? He legit tried to guess data. Who the hell improvises analytics?" I thought he was going to pass out. And Greg? He avoided eye contact. Avoided the break room. Avoided me. He even avoided the mirror in the men's restroom. I heard the stall door slam when he walked in and saw himself. That's when the fear kicks in for people like him. Not fear of losing their job. Fear of losing the audience. The next phase of the plan came from Kayla. Remember her? His assistant? The one he treated like a Roomba with feelings? I found her in the break room one afternoon staring at the espresso machine like it had personally failed her. "You okay?" I asked. She laughed in that brittle, exhausted way people do when they're 2 emails away from quitting. "He asked me to reorder his vitamins 3 times today," she said. 3. I have a degree. I nodded. then said the line that changed everything. Kayla, what would you do if you didn't have to protect him anymore? She blinked. Then she whispered, I have recordings. I didn't react, didn't widen my eyes, didn't smile, just said, then you hold all the power now. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she left without another word. On the day of Greg's big presentation, the one he wanted to use to angle for VP, Kayla accidentally loaded the wrong video. Instead of his stupid promo reel, a montage played. Greg mocking clients, Greg calling team members replaceable, Greg bragging about taking credit, Greg making fun of the CEO's shiny forehead, Greg saying he was surrounded by idiots, Greg calling Sarah emotionally fragile, Greg laughing about tricking legal into signing off on budgets. The room went nuclear. Gasps, stiffened backs. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," in slow motion. Greg went the color of microwaved shrimp. He fumbled the remote, dropped it, picked it up, hit fast forward, hit rewind, hit mute even though it was already muted. HR sprinted in like firefighters. The CEO's jaw literally tightened, like he was trying not to scream on camera. Greg was escorted out before lunch. Now comes the part everyone loves. The fall, the real one. The kind that comes slowly, painfully, humiliatingly. Greg didn't get hired anywhere. Marketing is a small world. The video leaked, everyone saw it. He deleted his LinkedIn, then made a new one, then deleted that too. His wife left him. True story, I didn't plan that one. His savings dried up. He tried to freelance, got no clients. 3 months later, Greg Landon, former director of strategic marketing initiatives, signed up to drive for Uber Eats. I didn't know that part. Not until the Tuesday it happened. The final scene. We ordered lunch as a team, sandwiches, chips, the usual. Reception called. Food is here. I walked out. Saw a courier in a blue Uber Eats jacket holding a paper bag. He turned around, and there he was. Greg, hair longer, eyes tired, jacket slightly dirty, shoes scuffed. A man who had finally realized he was not the protagonist of reality. He looked at the order, then at me. Recognition hit him like a shovel. He swallowed hard. I didn't smirk. Didn't gloat. Didn't say, I told you so. I just reached out and said, that's mine. He stared at me for a long second, then handed me the bag with a shaking hand. Have a nice day, he managed. You too, I said. Because the best revenge is being so unbothered it's poetic. The elevator doors closed on him, and that was that. He tried to ruin my career. He failed. I didn't ruin his life. He did that himself. I just made sure every truth he hid became too loud for the world to ignore. And now, he delivers Uber Eats to the office he once ruled, while I lead the department he tried to take from me. Justice doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be accurate.